Hey everyone. So I am about to bring in to this recording our next guest, and I've not met this person before. And so what I wanted to do is a side quest in this conversation. Now, the side quest is to use a strategy that I was taught recently called double clicking on the conversation. Essentially, that means like going down the Wikipedia kind of rabbit hole that you might do, where you go through and you click on a story and then you double click on another link and it just keeps sending you down different paths. I'm going to attempt to do this with this guest, which means that I'm going to be paying attention to what's being shared as I would normally, but I'm going to try to pick up keywords that they mention and as they go through the conversation and then double click on those. So I might ask some extension prompts and like, tell me more about what you just said here. So to see where we might end up. I've never used this strategy in an interview like this. So I'm going to give it a go. See if you can spot all the times that I double click on a conversation point and see if you can tell me what those are. On a little side quest for you in my side quest, a sub side quest for yourself. All right. Anyway, I'm going to bring in Mike Martin.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
How's it? Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So take me back to the Mike Martin of old. What's your experiential ed background?
Yeah, I started at summer camp, but I started as a camper, right? As a kid, I went to this same YMCA camp for so many years. I just loved it. And I decided to go back as a staff member, not altruistically, but just because I liked it there and I worked in the kitchen. And I remember that first year, they had just built Project Adventure, had just built a ropes course on our camp. And they just were like, hey, who wants to learn how to do this? And I saw the ropes and I saw the harnesses and I was like, yeah, that's me. Let's do this. And so I was part of the team that got trained that summer and I just never looked back. So they did all the low rope stuff with us. We trained on the higher elements, zip lines, all that type of thing. And then I worked there for another 6 years. And then I worked at another summer camp in Santa Cruz doing the same sorts of things and just found a niche there that was me. It's a good fit for me to be experiential and use play as a metaphor for life. And it was I just fell into the right thing.
So you've got a very similar background. I started at a Y, so that's the YMCA connection is another connection there.
Yeah.
And I had that same experience you just referenced there was like, you found that it was more you know, like you found what connected you. I was going into public school education. And then when I found the summer camp and that kind of experiential mode of teaching, it kind of changed the game for me. What about it for you? Was that like changing moment?
For me, I think that one of the kids, we had these three boys called the Hunter brothers that used to come up on the bus and they had pretty rough background and they'd come up for a couple of weeks every summer. And I remember one time at the end of the week, we had just done some experiential stuff and really enjoyed it. And one of the Hunter brothers came up to me and grabbed onto my leg and my camp name was Tigger. So I'm very energetic. So that makes sense. And just grabbed onto my leg and said, Tigger, I don't want to go. I want to stay here. And I just felt like I made a difference, right? So that was the moment for me that I realized that all of this stuff mattered. And I thought back when I was a kid and the people that did that for me, that I was now doing that for somebody else. And the idea that you get somebody as an example who goes to the pamper pole or they're going to climb up a tree and they got the sewing machine knee going, and they're, I got this. And the fact that they don't think they can do it. And then with all of the support and then the love and the people around them that they're able to conquer that, it's just, those are the defining moments for me when I say, wow, that's really making a difference. It's not just doing this to do it. It's not just fun, but it's way more than that, that people can push themselves further than they thought they could. And I could be a part of that.
It's almost like, and I've referenced this to some people, this is not a selfless pursuit to do the work, right? Like you do get so much out of it yourself. You said like that making the difference moment. Are there any other like I think stories anchor people to experience. So are there any others like you can think of like this is a moment you had the Tigger moment with those hunter kids, and now you've got. Is there anything else that's kind of reinforced for you the work? Like I often bring up this idea to people that the positive experiences are the things that anchor us to the job. Like they're the reasons we stay in. You can think of all the things that have gone wrong, but it's that anchoring moment. So, like, what's an anchor moment for you?
I was working with a high school girls soccer team one time, and we were out there doing all the basic low rope stuff. We were doing the trust falls and all those kinds of things, and they were going through the motions. And then we were doing the activity where you take the little helicopter and you move it from pad to pad with the ropes, and they stay on the outside of the circle. And so we did that, and it was great. And we sit around in a circle to do the debrief. And I just said, so how, what was going on for you? What'd you notice in that? And it was quiet for a minute, and then one of the girls said, I noticed and I thought about I need to be a better daughter to my mother. And I was like, huh? Yeah, I'm not even
Wow.
kidding. So here I am thinking this is all about communication and it's just a basic team building, and they're going to give me all of the standard, yeah, trust and team building and this and communication. And she just went there, and I don't know why, but she said, that, and obviously it was about communication, that activity. So I said, we're not talking about that. No, I didn't do that. I said, tell me more about that. Yeah, why would you say that? And then she just went off, talking about how she can be really bossy and that that's the moment that she had. And what do you think everybody else did in that circle? They all started going there, right? Yeah, me too. And then all of a sudden, the conversation, they were crying, and it was just such an emotional thing that happened. And I don't even know how it happened, right? I just asked a question that was very basic in our world. Like, what did you notice? What happened for you? And it went down a completely different thing. So to me, those are the anchor points where you just never know if what it's going to be that's going to turn it from this was just fun and yay, ha ha, high five, we had a good time, to this made a difference and I'm going to go back and be different in my life. I'm going to think about things differently, especially from a group of high school girls that I just didn't expect it. So it's things like that that make me realize that this is so powerful, and that's why I love the work. And I've had the ability to be able to now work in corporate world, and I was a CLO for a big tech company, and I get to use all of these same things with just bigger kids. Like, adults are just, they have the same problems, they go through the same stuff, they're just bigger kids. I'm sure you can relate to that, and it's just been nice to be able to pull that type of thing and be able to know that you're making a difference. And it might not happen. I saw your post a couple of days ago that's just like, even people watching, that's, they're involved, and you never know when that watching is going to turn into, this is the moment that I step out of my comfort zone and try it. So it's exciting. That's why I like the work that we do.
You bring up something, this unexpected, the word unexpected you mentioned. I think that it defines kind of the work in a way anyway, because participants coming into the work, they're going to experience stuff that maybe wasn't expected from them. Like, it's hard to know what you're coming into. It's a novel, unique experience to maybe participate in activities that we might lead. Like, that's the one of the selling points, I think, for people. It's like, you're going to do something that's different. We're changing it slightly. We're gonna the unexpected for the facilitator, the person running it. I think that is also the next level of your experience as a facilitator. Like, how are you coping with the unexpected? If you were to maybe give advice to newer folks coming into the field, like, how have you been able to navigate the unexpected?
I'm glad you asked that, because I just turned 50 last week, and I feel like I'm in the part of my career and life where I just want to give back. And I know there are a lot of me's and you's and other awesome folks coming up in this, and are who are inspired by the work. And I just want to give back and make sure that they have a little bit of that wisdom that we're passing down, that people like Adrian Kistler and Carl Ronke and all these folks passed down to us as we moved through the same thing. And to your specific point, I'd say just listen. I'd say just pause. I think the unexpected, we come in and we just want to take over and ask all sorts of questions and move on. It's like, oh, what's this and what's that and what do you think? But just as I've grown through this, I know just pausing and waiting, and in that moment, and just being okay with that. I think that that's one of the things that people, I know I did when I was younger, is that I talk fast, I move fast, I just want things to happen. Now it's just, let's just let it sit and marinate, and things will happen when they're supposed to and as they're supposed to. And we're just guides on this, right? Like, whatever they create is what they create. That's what they take home. I've heard it say that, we're like the midwives, right? Like, it's the meiotic process, is that they go home with the baby. We just help. It's not our thing. It's not, we're not connected to it in that way. And I think that that's really important for folks to know, is that it's not your thing. Like, when you're working with a group, it's their thing. And so I always tell people that if they're high-fiving me at the end of a training, of an event, and they're saying, Mike, thank you so much, you were the best, I didn't do my job. If they're high-fiving each other and they're saying, hey, you supported me and I'm here for you because they're going to go home. I'm not going with them. Right. So then I know that I've done something right. And I think that those are some of the things that if I was talking to my younger self, I'd say, just understand that and don't take it personally and just try to be there for them to guide them through whatever stage and whatever development they're at.
I'm trying to like align this idea that your younger self was Tigger, named Tigger because of the high energy, and maybe your older self is the owl. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of who the character in Winnie the Pooh maybe you've transformed into.
I go a little Eeyore
Because
sometimes. I
yeah,
got to
I
stay
know.
out of that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's really negative, Mike. You're a bit Eeyore right now. But I want to keep going on this because this stuff is I find the most fascinating as we go into like I posted on the LinkedIn and you referenced it, this idea that observation is participation. I was like referencing, I think that facilitators, we need to almost shift our expectation of what is good because someone shared with me, or it's a classic thing. If you just worked with a program, you'd have a colleague, and maybe it's like a family member or a lover. Someone will come up to you and ask you how your group was today. You get this question like, "How was the group today?" And I think that people will respond with like this, like, "Oh, it was great. Like the group was great." And so I've been challenging people whenever I ask them like, "How was your group today?" If they say the group was great, I'm like, "Why was it great?" So I'm going to like pose that question to you. What would you define as a great group today? The Mike of today, if you were working with a group, what would make them great? My guess is it's probably different than what the Tigger Mike would have said was a great group. So, but what would you just describe as a great group?
Is that it wasn't just a fun experience, that they took something with them, that everybody is going to walk out of there with a different behavior or mindset, or they're going to try something that they didn't think they could try, or that they are going to go and do something different as a result of the time that we spent together. To me, that's the win. Is that the easy part is hopefully I'm sure you run into this too, but I think the easy part is the event. Like when I have a group with me, I can carry the energy, I can keep them pumped. I mean, that's just me. That's just I'm on when I'm on, and that's what I do. But when they leave, that's the part that I think that we miss a lot, to be honest. And I think that in our field, in all training and development, all learning, we put on a great show and then we high ten and go, good luck with that. We hope you do something, and then we walk away and they go back to their same environments, their same pressures, all of this stuff that's going to try to break them and make them exactly how they were, even though they want to try something. They go, never mind. Right. So to me, when they walk away from an event saying, I'm going to try something new, and they do, that's a win for me. Not just that they were able to walk across the line, the two line, or do the trust fall or whatever it might be, is that they walked away with something real. And I think that that's where I'm at now. Is that before I didn't care. I was like, yeah, let's go and we're gonna have a great day. And when I walked away, I'm like, they had so much fun. That's a win. Now I'm thinking, but what do they actually get out of it, right? Other than just being a fun experience, what's the thing that they're gonna walk away with? And I think that's so important. And building the structures too, to allow them or to give them something to lean on when they go back into those environments is so important, because we just don't equip anybody with that. We say, all right, talk about it, enjoy, go try something new, and off they go. To me, that there's a big miss there. And that's what I'm professionally doing right now, is trying to figure out how to close that gap and make it so it's a little easier for people to transition to the practice, to the conversations and all the things that happen afterwards that we a lot of times miss.
I That's so well put in terms of that desire to see what's the next growth for them, what's the actual point. I think that I always challenge people to question the whys. Like, if you're just doing something, why are you going to do that? Like, if I'm just going to run an activity or I'm going to have someone climb, like, is that helpful for the goal of like what they're taking forward? If there's no transferability, then you do end up becoming just an entertainer. And I've even, I hear some people say like, well, I'm an edutainer, like I'm educating and entertaining. And I think if you can shift more the tainer part and get more to the edu part, that's the maybe the transition of your professional growth. Okay, so you've already like kind of teed me up for this, but tell me a little bit about praxis, because as I looked at search more of yourself, that gap of how do we transfer the learning from now into the follow-up and the continuation. I think that's the reason, to be honest, I started the podcast to an extent, because I felt like I wasn't connecting people after they left me. Like, hey, I want to give you more resource, like here is something else. But obviously it's a one-way street. Tell us about Praxis.
So that was a labor of love, and it came out of just my frustration of the work that I do. Is that I feel like a lot of times we'll go to the clients and we'll say, "Yeah, we're going to put on a great show. It's going to be amazing that day." And I say, "Well, what are we going to do afterwards?" They're like, "Never mind. We're just going to go do our thing." And they don't either have the budget or the will to be able to carry on and make it actually stick. Because you know that learning doesn't stick by just showing it to somebody or having it happen. It needs to be practice. It needs to be thought about longer than the event. So over the last 30 years of me doing this, I just grew frustrated with that idea. And during COVID, we're all digital. And one of my business partners now, and one of my mentors in the field, he's also from this background. He's where I learned how to do all this with corporate groups, right? So going out and working with adults and doing all of this stuff. And now I do all sorts of great stuff around the country. Like we did a Cubs program at Wrigley Field with a big group and a space program at the Kennedy Space Center. And we wrap it all around what they want to get out of it and such. But Praxis grew out of that, of this idea of like, what can we leave behind? If it isn't us and they don't want to go that route, then what is it? And how we started to approach it was, how could, like, if we kept the group together as a cohort, what would we want to do? What's the best way digitally that we can do that to keep them talking to each other, sharing ideas, practicing, learning little bits at a time, and really continuing that journey, we call it, of the learning. So yeah, we started the company back in the end of COVID. So it was, we're just a few years old now. But what's interesting about it is that people really, really take to this idea that we can leave something behind. So it's a digital platform, just real quick. It's there for folks to be able to say, all right, after this is over, what are the things that you want to keep on talking about? What are the things that you want to practice? What are the things that will prove to each other that you are taking it away and you're doing something with it? So they basically have it on their phones, they have it on their computers, and basically each day that we have something scheduled, it pops in and it says, hey, we're going to do something today. And the way that we do it is that we want only 1% of their day. Whenever they're actually doing this stuff in praxis, we only want it to be 14 minutes and 24 seconds or less. 1% of the day to make huge gains. We're not asking them to do a whole bunch of stuff, but like maybe 3 days a week, you do 14 minutes and you're having conversations with other people through the app, right? You're collecting, you're reading things from each other and like, oh, I tried this and it didn't work, or oh, I tried that and it did work. Here's my advice to you. We're giving them little bits of content to continue their path with whatever that stuff is, and keeping them connected around whatever was so important that we brought them together for. Because you know this, that when groups come together, there's a reason. At least somebody thought there was, and they're putting a lot of time, money, effort, and resources into bringing people together and having that experience, and then leaving a lot of the value because they don't do anything afterwards. So for a week, 2 weeks, we have some now that are going months long, and they're every other day, and it's great. You should see the conversations that we've captured after these events that just wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a system in place to do it. And if I could stay with them, I would. I mean, 100%. Like I like the live thing and people talking to people, but that's just not the world we live in. So what's the next best thing? That's what we tried to build. So long rambling description there, but I'm passionate about it and I kind of get going.
Yeah, no, I love the patch and follow it. It's it's interesting because I think that we talk about this a lot in programming. Like skill acquisition is a time thing. It's like it's certainly not like a quick. And I think sometimes people will call us and say, "Hey, Phil, we'd like you to work for with our group. We've got 4 hours. We need you to fix our communication problems." It's like, well, I'm not going to do that, right? Like I'm pretty obvious, clear with them. Like that's not even doable. I can give you some groundwork ideas, but you're going to have to do the follow up. And sometimes you experience this with in-person events as I do. We've already talked about it, the unexpected, the adaptability. I can plan as best as I can, but I won't know until the group are with me, standing in front of me, and actually engaging, will I know where I'm going to go. And that can be a really hard thing to sell to a client, of this idea that, yeah, you're going to spend money on an unknown. Like I'll work with them, but I don't know how they're going to show up. So I'm going to do my best. And if you ever looked at my agendas, they are always torn up. Like I'm going a different route, so I can't predict stuff. But what I can hope to get is like, this is where I'm going to try to get you to go. What you're suggesting and doing is being able to actually cultivate the actual follow up to give them skill acquisition, right?
100%.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
how do you,
imagine this
yeah,
just real quick. Just imagine you have an event now. I mean, you do this for a living. So you have an event and on the front end, before the group gets there, you're going to send out and you're going to get them connected inside the platform. It's like, "Hey, introduce yourself, something about yourself, and here's going to be the agenda, some things that we're going to talk about. Just start thinking about it. Come prepared for X, Y, and Z." And so maybe they get a couple of those before they show up and it's like, "Oh wow, they've already started thinking about it. They've already done some of the work that you end up and I end up doing in person that wastes time," right? Some of the stuff is just procedural. It's like get that out of the way so that when they hit the ground, when they get there, they hit the ground running. Then you do the stuff, and then afterwards you say, "Hey, for the next 2 weeks, every other day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're going to continue to practice this stuff. You're going to get a thing in your inbox, and it's going to talk about, hey, here's what we're talking about today, and you're going to jump back in and spend 5 to 15 minutes. That's it in there, 3 days a week." And so it's only 6 times, right? And then that is going to keep this flowing. So that's, I mean, think about that. I just wanted to put it in the context of what, one of your events, that would be, to me, that's a full journey there. It's not just the middle, it's the beginning and the end as well. So you've got this full path from on the trailhead to the mountain, right? That you're just focused and that you can do the most that you can and get them set up for success.
it tends to be as well. I think in peak moments of experience, like there are mainly two areas that people remember. They remember a peak moment, whatever that moment might be, but they also remember the end. So it's like if the end for you is like, all right, fill out evaluation forms, or like there's the ends. I always struggle with this idea of like the ending of a program. How do we make the ending meaningful in some way? And it's often through some form of reflection, but it feels like it's a rush thing because you're like, oh, time, the bus is coming, or something is impacting you. What you're able to do with this is actually extend and cultivate the end, which is kind of pretty exciting, because this idea of like, I can actually craft the end in a way that I'm not constrained by other factors that are going to go against you. How do you, what's the method by which, and you've worked in learning and development for 30 years. What's your method of engagement? You already referenced like it's a limited period of time.
Yep.
Like, how do you keep people focused on that, even without your presence, even though you've got a digital connection? What's the methods by which you do that?
Well, two things. One is just engaging the people with leaderboards and how making sure that they understand the why, the what's in it for me. And I do a lot of that before I turn them loose on this. So it's not just one other thing. It depends on whether you're talking about kids or adults. I mean, our product is mostly adults right now. In fact, it's all. But you gotta tell them why it's important, why it makes sense. And so I get them to do that. And then there's a curation feature of it too, whether the person on their side will be the one that's going to say, "Hey, I'm going to keep at it and help them along and make sure that they're engaged," or it's me. Like sometimes I'll say, "Hey, can you just stay involved in this?" And I'll be part of that, of just asking questions, right? Jumping in the chats, those kinds of things, and keeping them connected. And you'd be surprised that you think people will turn it off, but we had a group that this is the longest one we ever did for 1 month, and it was every single day of the work week. So, I mean, it was a lot of stuff, and they checked it. And I mean, when they were done, they created, I think, what it was like 90 pages of text. I think it was like 65 or 1,000 words or something like that, that they had written after the event was over and to continue that process. And I thought that was pretty ridiculous. Or no, not ridiculous. I thought that was just amazing. Like in my mind, I'm like, that's crazy, but that was what they do. Because once they start getting into it and they start seeing each other, liking comments and responding, that's when they get that social engagement and that there's that social piece of it, the glue that keeps them coming back. And I like the way that you talk about the after events, the checklists and all that. We've done away with all of that because what's interesting in this AI age is that we can actually take now all of the content that they're writing in the chats. They know it's public and they've said it out loud to everybody in there. And we could take all of that and we can run it through AI and start looking for trends. We can start looking at what their feeling is and how they're focused on what now. And by just carefully crafting the questions that we ask and the conversations, we can pull all that stuff out without having to ask them to go through a checklist. I mean, you can honestly pull that stuff out and get their sentiment, which is really, really great because people like that a whole lot better than some Likert scale, right? It's just like, "Hey, tell me about your
Yeah,
experience. What was the one thing that really stood
yeah.
out for you? Or did you see somebody do something that and they just write it all out. And then you have all of that. And then that influences what you ask next or what you do next. Like, wow, they really were focused on this. And then I give that to the leader, right? Like whoever, when this is finally done, I say, this is the stuff that's important to them. You might want to keep talking about, right? Because they said it. I'm not making it up. They said it in a
Mhm.
way that was comfortable for them, not just a checklist. So that's one thing I'm really we backed into that, by the way. I think that that wasn't originally the thing we were going after, and then we realized that the chats were the gold. That's the thing, is having those conversations and being able to look back at those and help them on their way.
I kind of feel we're on this precipice. There's I actually have behind me, it's blurred out, but like I have a copy of Silver Bullets from Carl Ronke. You referenced Carl earlier, so there's the connection
Yeah.
there. It's a signed copy. I knew Carl before he passed, and that's a very meaningful connection to me. But we're in this this time I find, and I've been doing this more in the podcast and in comments and stuff of the critically looking at stuff that we've been doing in the past. Uh, I've referenced this notion of the critic as the greatest optimist because I think that we're actually like, if you critique something, you care. It's not from a point of like, oh, I'm going to rag on something, but I'm actually going to see if we can improve it. It feels like if we go back, even referencing the tigger to the owl of your generation of experience, you've worked in ropes courses, summer camps, experiential ed. You're now working in the digital world. You did a lot of L&D in digital world, and now you're combining this. And you referenced the use of AI in this. How do you see, if we were to track a path of where the industry is going, how do we honor the past, keeping some of that, honor what's happening in the future? Because I'm very much tech positive as well. I kind of see the benefits. Like, how do you bridge that gap? Because I think that there's a gap there maybe where it's like the old ways are the right ways and like new ways are bad. It's like it feels like you are like skirting right along with that path of both. So maybe you have some insight into that. But where do you see the future of it?
What jumps out to me is that keeping it about the person, keeping it about the human being that we're trying to make a difference in their lives or they're trying to make a change in their lives. The technology is just a conduit. It's a tool by which we use to create better conversations or connect better with each other and to really affect the human. I keep that at the center of everything that I do. So the AI that we use isn't about taking over and teaching them. You don't have an AI bot that's like, all right, I'm going to walk you through da da da. No, it works to help you connect with another person that was at that training with you or that has a similar in the same similar spot as you. And you can talk about it and say, what did you do? And share that stuff. I think that we need to be vigilant because I think right now the pendulum is swinging so far to everything's about AI and you can do everything yourself and just talk to it. I think AI should, in this context, should be about connecting people to other people instead of people to it. Right. So to me, that's an important thing and just keeping the human at the center of it. That's why I love all the experiential stuff. And I got to tell you, when I went into the corporate world, they just weren't ready for me at first because I'm doing all these crazy things like clasp your hands together and then do it the other way. And how does that feel? And they're going, huh? But it is such a huge mind blown for them that we're doing these types of things. But it's about them, right? It's about them as a person. It's about keeping that at the center of what we do. So if I'm giving advice to people, I'd say that use the technology however it's appropriate and we'll solve that or go towards that goal. Move us towards humans being better and connecting to each other more. So, I mean, that doesn't mean that there aren't times that AI could be great one on one. I think coaching is a really great piece of that, or more so role playing. I think that there are some people, even myself, that I'm going to do something new and I don't really want to do it with another human and put myself out there and at first. So, it'd be great to do this whole thing and role play with an AI and it just doesn't care, right? So you talk and I could work it out and then I could come to Phil and say, "Hey, I want to practice this with you." And I feel more confident, so there are times that technology is great with that, but I think we can't lose sight of the experience piece. And I talked about the pendulum swinging one way. I think we have a lot of job security in the service that we do because it's going to swing back the other way. People are going to go, I don't want to do that digital stuff. I want to be in a room with other humans and I want to do that. And I think that that's going to
Yeah.
come if it hasn't already. I mean, I'm seeing that in my work is that people are just saying we want to do more things together. And I think that's so important not to lose.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that I'm definitely feeling that sense of like people just want to feel connected. in whatever way they want to feel connected, and that might be somewhat digitally, but it's also just you. I think you referenced earlier in this is just feeling like you're not alone in a moment, like feeling like you're connected in some way to something. We have a deck of cards that just says on the box, it says who else feels that way. Because you'd referenced the story of like the girl who was saying she needed to be a better daughter to her mum, and it started to percolate other people. Like those kind of moments is what connects us and continues to connect us. And we have the fortunate role of just being able to ask a very simple, sometimes very simple question that results in a huge response. So that kind of continues to get me excited in the field. Last question I have for you. We've already referenced like the giving back and the like how do we continue this going into the field? I'm gonna ask you like one last nugget of information, something that maybe has been something passionate that you've had recently or something that's happened that you're like, well, this is something that I wish people knew more about in the field. Do you have anything that's like stands out as like, oh, I'd love to share this one piece?
That's a good one. I think that just understanding that I said it earlier that this is their process, right? I think that to me, we create these amazing experiences. Like I'd mentioned, the Wrigley Field one we just did. We did this amazing thing where we were up in one of the boxes and we had 25 people and they did a tour and we connected it to the 2016 when they won the World Series and how that all came about. We can create these elaborate and exciting experiences. I think that people in our field need to remember, though, that it's about whatever happens for them and what they can take away from that. I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the fun of it all, and that's what I would say. Is like I had that experience in Chicago where it was great, but then we did the first day was the Wrigley thing, and it really set them up for the next day, which was the work day, right? So we were just in one of the conference rooms, and they dug in and started talking about really what drives them as a team and what they want to see and what they don't want to see and what agreements they're going to live by. And so we can use these as conduits, but those are the conversations, right? That we can't lose sight of the why, like you had mentioned earlier. That why are we doing this? Like if there's no purpose other than fun, then you could do a lot of things a lot cheaper than to bring everybody out here and do this stuff, right? But we know that these open up people. They open up just the environment, and then just the sheer connectedness of the people in the same place. It's magical. It's like taking people into the woods, right? Like there's a medicinal quality to taking people out in the outdoor adventures and doing things like that. So I
I
think that
think that
just
yeah.
understanding that, yeah, just real quick, just understanding the event and then what you're trying to get out of it, and just really walking that line to make sure. And I said that wrong. What it's not about me, about what I'm trying to get out of it, but trying to understand what they are and where they're gonna and how we can guide them best to where they want to be.
There was an interview I did with a guy called Colin Beard. He kind of changed the notion of experiential ed in my head a little bit, and he referenced that instead of learning from experiences, so typically we might think, oh, I'm going to create an experience, you're going to learn from it. Flip it just the other way and say, how are you going to create the best experience that will maximize the learning? And I think that taking someone to a unique space instead of being in their space, I think those moments maximize learning because I think that just getting people out of their comfortable positions, taking something new, just like taking a walk in the woods. And I think that that's the thing that I often reference to people. Try to consider it like how are you creating the the best experience to maximize the learning, not create an experience they will learn from.
Hmm.
It's almost like there's a slight different nuance to that, which for me it was kind of, wow, okay, I need to really think about that. What is the experience that is gonna maximize learning?
I love
So,
that. And then, as you mentioned earlier, being able to pivot and tweak. I remember working with Carl Ronke and Adrian Kistler, and they had their whole thing on you got to tweak. Everything's going to take a tweak. It's going to be a little bit different. Than we're going to have to do this and tuck and yeah. So just being able to in those moments, be able to follow it through to where they want to end and where they want to land. I think that's so important. But yeah, I think that you're exactly right. You got to build these environments, but I always try to remind people, especially the new folks who are doing this job, is that I always tell groups, I say it's a your fault day, right? So if you have an amazing time and learn a bunch, totally your fault. It wasn't. But also on the other side of that coin, right? If you didn't, you got to look at yourself and where your DNA is on the crime scene, right? So it's like trying to get them to take ownership for what they do and then have them build what they want to do. And what's interesting, what we found too with that, the after, pull through as they call it, these folks I keep working with, they keep pull through, is that we have some groups that design their own pull through. and then we just put it into the platform for them. So the last event of the day of their event, or their big experiential whatever, is to say, for the next 2 weeks, what are the things you don't want to forget? Get into small groups, and you're going to each get a day, and you're going to say, here's the stuff that we want to put in there and what we want to talk about and the questions we want to ask. And then, people support what they create. So then we put it in there, and you should see all of that engagement happens, because it's like, oh, today is brought to you by Jim, Jam, and whatever. Like, it's good. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm really resonating with the your fault day thing, only because I did a team development program yesterday, and I was doing a problem solving challenge for the group, and I asked them at the end, like, how before I tell you how you did, like, what do you anticipate your successes in this activity? And they were like listing like things that they think they did well, and they ultimately said, well, if we don't do well, we actually think it's because Phil, you probably cheated the system and tricked us in some way, and I was like, wow, how interesting of a response to say that if you do well, it's down to you. If you did bad, it's down to me. Where's the ownership on if it goes wrong, right? So like this idea of like the your fault, I'm kind of resonating a lot with that at the moment. But
Everybody
it brought
thinks
up
the
rich
problem is out
conversation.
there, right? Like,
Yeah,
everyone, it's always the problem. And if the problem is always out there, then you see the problem with that, right?
yeah,
It just doesn't work. People don't say, well, maybe it was me. And I think that's such an important thing in the work that we do, is to get people to change that mindset a bit and say, first, what did I do, or what am I not doing? And then move on. Like, you might find that, yeah, you are doing the right stuff and it is out there, but we immediately jump to, it wasn't me. It was all of that, and it was the situation, it was the weather, it was whatever. But like, because it's just so much harder to take that ownership. Yeah.
fascinating. Mike, thank you for this. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely, and we've just talked for 40 minutes
Yeah, it's so
on
good. We could
just.
talk.
ju-
Love it.
I know, just going in the classic, like when you meet someone who has a similar background or
Yeah.
similar passions, then it's very easy to find that connective tissue. So
Let's stay connected,
thank
man.
you.
I'd love to keep talking. And if I'm ever out on the East Coast or you're in the West, we should hook up. It'd be fun.